Hi guys, Luca here from Sabre Airsoft with something I've never seen before. It's very unique. I'm sure you'll agree. This is, at its core, a Golden Eagle, and I might get this wrong, MG6588M. This is not based on the MWS system, like a lot of the M4 style replicas that you'll see these days. This is instead based on the WA system. And there are a lot of people out there I know who will be like, well, that's clearly the superior one, or MWS is superior. That's not the matter of this video. That is for you to go and debate over on Heavy Recoil Club. No, the point of this video is to talk about, one, just how unique this one looks, and also the things that I've had to do to it in order to get it back up and running, because it did come to me broken. This has come from one of you guys, one of my viewers, and I've been waiting to record this video until I had it fully working and working well. So, what is this? Well, it's an M4, obviously, that much you can tell. This is not one of the original parts. This is not one of the original parts. Neither is the tracer, neither is the stock, and neither is the buffer tube, which is a carbon fiber one. Nor, internally, is the bolt carrier group, feed ramp, barrel, or hop unit or hop rubber. All of that has changed, including the nozzle, because the problem that was reported when the customer got in contact was that they would insert a mag, pull the trigger, and all of the gas would come shooting out of the barrel. The problem that was causing that, to me, was a very obvious one, but was not to this customer. They're pretty experienced with tools and like, but they're not very experienced with gas blowback replicas or airsoft replicas in general, at least internally, which is fine. Happy to help. The problem that was causing it, I was able to identify before it even turned up, and the reason for that is because I know how gas blowbacks work, and they work almost the same way universally. And what I mean by that is that when you have your gas mag and you put it into the mag well and you pull the trigger, a very specific sequence of events happens, and it's almost universally the same no matter what replica it is. You pull the trigger, a hammer of some sort will fly forward. In a lot of them, it will resemble usually the real steel version. And that will usually, in some capacity, some by a cam system, some by striking it, will hit a knocker arm, as it's called. That will come forward into the magwell and strike this valve. When that happens, gas is then ejected through this port into the nozzle and then down the barrel. What happens after that point is obviously the BB then starts flying down the barrel, but there's a secondary valve within your nozzle, which is known as a rocket valve. That will go forward, blocking off this way and forcing all the gas this way. That's where your recoil comes in. That's what causes it. So if that second half doesn't happen and it only goes that way, that means that there's a problem with your rocket nozzle. In the case of this customer, he didn't have one. I'm as shocked as you are. I don't think I didn't expect that. I expected maybe the rocket nozzle spring had broken, or maybe the rocket valve, nozzle spring had broken, or maybe it was jammed in some capacity and wasn't shooting forward. Any number of things. Nope, just straight up wasn't there. This customer has actually become one of my favorites for a variety of reasons. One of them is that not only did he give me a really detailed breakdown of what a description of the problem, things that he tried, etc., but he also sent the original nozzle, one mag, a different mag, and a brand new mag. And he labelled each and every one of them. For example, brand new, never used. I think this one was the one that he was using to test all the time. This one he said he believed was leaking, but he'd never actually tested it. OG nozzle. That kind of detail of, hey, these are the things I've done, here's the things I've tried, etc. That's really helpful for guys like me. And they even attempted to modify the knocker, thinking that the knocker itself might have been the issue. And there we go. supplied that as well. So I can see I've got a clear history here of everything that they tried. As I said though, that wasn't the issue. And I've got the original nozzle here that was in there. And it's not going to come through very well. But basically there is, I mean, if I take it out, obviously I've removed the back now. But you'll have to believe me, I'm afraid. But as you can see, there is nothing in there. You should not be able to see light through there like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing that they didn't know that. If you don't know how these work and operate mechanically, why would you know that? So, what have I done to fix it? Well, massively thanks to the guys over at the Heavy Recoil Club, I was able to get the right parts for this and get it back together, and even put in something which I've wanted to try but not had anything to try it on yet, which is the new Quantum Magnus Pro hop-up unit. I did give this a test shoot yesterday. Very, very nice shooting. I was hitting out rough estimate of about 60 meters with 0.28s, between 60 and 80, not entirely sure. We didn't measure it, but that is the rough estimate. I could be wrong, it could be less, it could be more. I don't know. I very much doubt it's more, but it has the potential to. So what I learned from the guys over at the Heavy Recoil Club is that in order to replace the nozzle in this, you're going to struggle. Because it's the Golden Eagle one and it's based on the WA, the WA has been out of circulation and out of production for a very, very long time. Parts for the original are gold dust. You can't find it. And with Golden Eagles as well, generally you will struggle to find original parts. However, because it's a WA system, there's two other brands that work on the same design. That is the VFC M4 V3 and the GHK M4. I'm not sure what the actual model is. Both of those are compatible with some modification with this. I'm not usually too keen on doing modifications because it's very easy to get wrong, and then when you do get it wrong, it's expensive to fix. And this was not cheap to get the parts. The Magnus Pro, for example, was 75 quid by itself. So let's take a look inside, shall we? And see what we had to do in order to fit the VFC bolt first. So this is what I love about gas blowbacks. They take down just like the real thing with the rear body pin there, and you can remove the bolt. So here we are. This comes with an end pass, which is why I picked it basically, because the customer wants the ability to adjust the power levels as they need to. And that is achieved via a 1.5mm Allen key down the end of the nozzle there, in order to move the rocket valve position, starting position, forward and backwards. The further upwards it is, the less power you have. The further back it is, the more power you have, I believe. I may be wrong. I will confirm that. The only way to get one of these to fit in is to file down the end of it so that it matches the length approximately of the original. You do it without that, without having to file it down, though you'll have to then remove both body pins and slide the upper off like you would in an AEG in order for it to work. Doesn't really affect the function overall, but that is something to be aware of. Another thing to be aware of is between the two, if you were to line them up, you'll find that the original, the rear of the bolt carrier group, is a little bit further forward than on the VFC one. That is important, especially if you use full auto, as that tiny part there, this shelf here, is what interacts with and actuates the auto sear. So, looking at the trigger group, a lot of people replace this, either with an RA Tech one, or I believe there's some people who put burst fire ones in. The auto sear is this here. What that does is when you're in full auto, that's what's holding the hammer back. So as the bolt travels back, it's caught by the auto sear, and then as the bolt comes forward and goes into battery, it pushes on that auto sear and releases the hammer to this position. Once it's in that position, it can fire. Whereas in semi, that function is achieved just on that point. Due to Luca here, this is going to happen a few times during this video. I did an absolute terrible job explaining this. Basically, when the hammer comes back, it is caught by the trigger sear. in semi-automatic. In fully automatic, it is caught by the auto sear. When you're firing in fully automatic and you're holding that trigger down, that then means that the auto sear is the only thing preventing it from firing. So it will not catch on the trigger. If you let go of the trigger, then it's allowed to catch on the trigger sear and act like it would otherwise in semi. So long story short, in semi, just the trigger sear, and every time it will catch. In fully automatic, it's the auto sear, and it will only catch when the trigger is released. Okay, hope that's right. Back to the video. As you can see there. And again, auto is a little bit further back and won't fire until that's triggered. You can get longer auto sears or better angle. You could angle this backwards, for example, in order to ensure that it catches. In this instance, the customer is happy to explore that themselves, and they're not too particularly fussed about full auto, so that's fine. Happy to accommodate and leave that to them. As I say, they understand now a lot better, as I always send videos explaining what the problem is and solutions, etc. And they have much better tooling available to them than I do, so they will do a much better job of it, I hope. If not, it'll be back in my workshop, I'm sure. Or they'll be asking me which parts to get to replace it, which again, more than happy to help. What's different about this kind of M4, and is different from quite a few blowbacks, and I might have to dig out a pistol quickly to demonstrate, is the way that the valve is actuated by the knocker arm. In a lot of replicas, what you'll find is that the knocker arm is held back, spring-loaded, and defaults in a forward position, and is only released once the bolt, defaults into a rear position, and is only released back when the bolt has travelled sufficiently in order to trigger, usually a little arm on one side or the other, that releases the knocker and allows it to come back and stop depressing the valve. In this, that is not the case. The way it works in this one is the hammer hits the knocker into the magwell and strikes the valve, and then immediately stops. And in fact, it's the travel of the bolt which makes it stop releasing gas just by virtue of the hammer. So if I let the hammer go, you can see that by default, that is not in the magwell. That's a bit different. As I say, most of them essentially would remain in that position until the bolt had triggered the knocker valve to return. In fact, I'll just quickly get a pistol to demonstrate. So, to demonstrate, this is an AAP, basically a Glock. I'll just take this top off here. It's currently in the fire position, I believe. You can see the, might be able to just about see, there's a little silver block in there, which is the knocker arm. So we'll retract the hammer, like that. And we'll look down again. We'll see that the arm is still there. Then when we press this one, I believe it's this one, the knocker arm retracts. And it won't fire until that auto sear there is pressed, and then you can fire again. So once more, hammer comes back, it's caught by the auto sear, and that is still out there. Then this is also pressed, which is the knocker reset, and it retracts. Simple as that. Oh, put this back. And those are your two primary ways of actuating the mag valve and then resetting it. Either passively like this, where it's just that initial velocity which causes it to release gas, or more actively where it is continually depressed until the bolt has cycled. Which is more efficient? That's up for debate, and I'll let you guys argue about what is better. I quite like this way because you're less likely to get a gas dump as a result of a failure to fully cycle. You might get bouncing, where it feels like it's going full auto, but it won't just dump it all out. The other thing that's not original in this is this here. This is the GHK feed ramp. And if you're going to put it into this upper receiver from Golden Eagle, this will not index off it. Currently, that is held by quite a lot of pressure from the outer barrel, pressing on the hop and crushing it against the upper receiver. That's that for now. Some other really interesting things that the Golden Eagle version of this has is, rather than a gas blowback barrel, it uses an AEG barrel, and it also uses an AEG outer barrel. So all of this, normal gas blowback, outer barrel, AEG. So if you want to put gas blowback outer barrel on, you may have to change your upper receiver or make some modifications in order to make it fit. So I'm just going to put the bolt back in. And then put that back onto the lower receiver. Furthermore, if you weren't aware actually, this, again, very similar to the real thing, has a buffer spring and buffer weight, although I think weight is a bit generous in this instance, as it is just plastic. You can change this out for something heavier, though be aware that means you're going to need more gas in order to actuate the bolt. And again, you can change the spring for something lighter, heavier. This is quite a light spring to begin with, and I know a lot of people recommend to change it, though with this at the moment, it works okay. I quite enjoy shooting it. So just quickly get the upper and lower back together. And I'll show you very quickly just a couple of dry fire shots. See if you can understand why I really enjoy this. So if you want to dry fire, you can either remove the empty catch which pushes up, or you can just hold down on the bolt catch release. Oh, it is very satisfying. And this is, as I say, the problem with the auto sear, which the customer is happy to sort themselves if they ever want to. As you can see, it just does not go and hit that auto sear. But switch semi and it works again without having to recharge the handle. There we go. Isn't that satisfying? There we go. So that's it for that part. There's not really much to talk about on the buffer tube. As I say, it is a standard gas blowback buffer tube. So let's have a look and talk about the Handguard, which is a bit loose at the minute. I am going to tighten it back up before sending it back to the customer. It's just, I've had to have it off a few times, so obviously not going to be super tight whilst I'm taking it apart several times, which, by the way, shouldn't do. Try and minimize the amount of times you do take things apart, because the more you take it apart, the more likely something is to go wrong as a result of you taking it apart. I'm sure the guys over at Nuprol are giggling at me saying that, well, they know the reason why. Anyway, this is a real steel handguard that's come from a company called, I believe, Unique AR. I've never seen anything like this before. It was my first time, and when the customer said, I'm going to send you this Golden Eagle MG6588M, I was like, okay, yeah. So I looked it up a little bit, learned a bit as I could ahead of time what to expect. And when this was presented to me in the box, I was pleasantly surprised. I like the scattered grip. I think it feels quite good, and I quite like the aesthetic of this, though utility wise, obviously you can't put any rails on or any attachments. You can via these holes here, but I think that would ruin the look personally. This also caught me out because I'm so used to using metric, and of course our cousins over across the pond still insist on using a system of measurements created by a madman. So these are 1/8 inch hex bolt heads, not 3mm or something sensible. So we'll just get this off so we can have a look at the hop unit that's in here. In fact, I don't think I need to remove that because it is currently loose. Okay, future Luca cutting in here. You do have to separate them. Basically, the handguard is held on by like a handguard nut, and then the inner barrel has its own inner barrel castle nut. You put the outer one on first, put the outer barrel in, and then put the outer barrel castle nut on to tighten it all down. I was an idiot here.
So ignore me in the video. Listen to future Luca, not past Luca.
So I'm going to do those back up, and I'm instead going to just remove it as one piece. And we can see some of the jankiness then that had to be achieved in order to get this all to fit. That there is normally for adjusting your hop-up. You can set the original hop-up for this either to adjust from here or from inside the chamber, but it's not particularly great. And Quantum have released this hop unit here. This, after the testing I've done, is fantastic. Unfortunately, I'm not going to take it apart on camera. Quantum themselves have got an installation video which I advise you go and watch if you want to learn how to install it. The reason I'm not going to take it apart on camera is because, again, I don't want to take it apart too many times, and it can be a bit fiddly. So rather than make you sit there and watch me get frustrated and try to remember every single step, I thought I'll just leave it on there for now. It works best with the Quantum hop rubber, as you can see there, and I'm also not going to adjust this, but this adjustment ring here is what you use to adjust it, and it's actually I quite like what they've done here. So rather than having to awkwardly try and get an Allen key down through here into a hole to then adjust, instead you just go in between the locking lugs with the Allen key and just push it either this way for more or this way for less, and it is nice, stiff, and holds its hop really, really well. It also uses a direct TDC. This is really well machined in here and can only go up and down. It doesn't cant at all. If there is any cant in this instance, it's probably because this is rotated, though if done up properly, it shouldn't rotate. The amount of force being applied to it is quite a lot. Other things to note with this as well is obviously a gas blowback one. And if I just unscrew this a little bit, we can hopefully see without losing any. So those silver bits are pins which are pushed in by this locking nut here. What those do is it's 3 points of contact in order to center and secure the barrel to the hop unit, and that is rock solid, that connection. This is just an old gas blowback barrel, temporary, that I cut down to the size that was already in there. The reason for that is it was an AEG barrel, and finding gas blowback barrels at the minute is a pain. I do have one on the way, which I'll be sending on to the customer afterwards. That is coming all the way from Taiwan Gun. Managed to jump on an order from there. So, yeah, this is not particularly well cut down or well crowned. Apologies, I again don't have the right tooling. I thought I did. Turns out the tooling I have is absolutely rubbish, and I was running out of time, so did what I could. They accepted it and are happy with that, and they've got better tooling, as I've said before. With this GHK feed ramp and the Quantum hop unit, you need to make sure you use this little spacer here, whereas if you're installing it into a VFC, you don't need this spacer. This can work with the original feed ramp, which will index and would be better. However, it does require you to mill the notch on the side an additional 3mm. And again, I didn't have the right tooling. I did attempt it. I, however, made an absolute hash job. So the customer's not paid for this. I've paid for this. Own up to your own mistakes. No one's perfect. And I don't think personally it's fair to charge a customer for your own cock up. Right, let's get this back together. This O-ring here, by the way, is important. This O-ring and then this spacer. That is a crush ring, effectively, which just helps to really hold everything steady. That plus this spring, it doesn't go anywhere. The way that I put this in is I keep the bolt in there, and in order to ensure it lines up, I pop this in until the nozzle is in there, in order to make sure it's properly seated. I'm just going to pull the bolt back just to be sure. Yes. What I do is I use that to keep it aligned as I put on the outer barrel. Now I'm afraid this will be off camera, as it does take me a little bit of effort to do.
Yeah, future Luca jumping in once again. So this would have been so much easier if I'd have just taken the handguard off and done this properly. I did do that again off camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to skip ahead to get through this awkward moment where I'm being an absolute idiot. It happens, guys. No one's perfect at all. Anyway, let's skip ahead.
Okay, it's not on straight, but I'll sort that in a moment off camera. There we go. That is what this is. It's a WA system, and again, I can't thank enough the guys over at the Heavy Recoil Club Discord, because they were invaluable in telling me what works, what doesn't, what I would need to do in order to get it working. And yeah, absolutely brilliant. This thing shoots lovely. It's accurate even with this terrible barrel in there. And it's just a very satisfying trigger break on it. It's right on the wall from the get-go and just goes absolutely lovely. There's not a huge amount to talk about on this. As I say, it is a WA M4. The trigger group can be improved. You can get better ones. And it is easy enough to replace it if you need to, as a lot of it is not under tension. I will just show you the trigger group once more, actually, before the end of the video. So, removing the auto sear, very easy. It's just this pin here. There's not a lot of spring tension. Just quickly let that go. There's not a lot of spring tension, so you shouldn't have any issues with that. The hammer is held in by this screw here, and I believe a pin which goes through, which it rides on. The knocker arm is part of the bolt catch release unit. As you can see through this one, they are all one part. So if you take the one out, you're going to remove the other. And you're going to see also this is an aftermarket one. Yeah, and then the trigger is held in by this pin here. All in all, it is quite a straightforward system. I believe this might be aftermarket as well, the mag catch, which is held on by these two screws. A typical, more traditional mag catch would be held on just by a single screw. You'd push through and then unwind in order to remove it. And there we go. So that is it for this one, guys. This customer is going to be getting this sent back to them this week, and they'll get the barrel at a later date once that comes to me. It did take me a little while to do this, although in all labour charge, 2 hours. If I had all the parts to begin with, it would have only taken me 2 hours to do. I don't charge my customers based on how long it actually took me. I charge based on what it should take. As I say, my goal is to save you guys money and get you back up and running as quickly as possible. And with the YouTube, my goal is to be informative. That's it for this video. Catch you on the next one.